Hi, I'm Katie Sparks, and today I'll be going over the basics of a few Western bits, starting kind of with our softest and what we would start young horses in, and finishing with one of my favorites for a finished horse. So the first one I like to start off a horse in is an O-ring snaffle. So what you're going to see in this bit is that we always look for when it's folded, it's as even as possible. You don't want one end sticking down further. This bit has a little bit of that. It's not ideal, but it's better than most. And the thing with an O-ring that makes it really soft is not just the snaffle mouthpiece, which is when there's two pieces with a hinge in the middle, but the O-rings themselves rotate, which helps take the pressure of the reins off of a young horse's mouth when they're still learning. So overall, this is a really great one for a horse who's just starting to go under a bit. From there, my absolute favorite young horse bit after they've had a few rides is a Western D-ring. So you'll see this is really similar. That mouthpiece again, we're gonna fold it, check if it looks even. It's relatively even on this one. The biggest difference you're gonna see between this and the O-ring snaffle comes down to the ring. So on the O-ring, we had the loose snaffle and loose ring. On this, however, because it's a D-ring, it comes straight down and there's no rotation. So you can ride a horse in an O-ring or a D-ring like that, two-handed, and up till the age of 5 in competition. However, once past the age of 5, a horse does have to progress in Western competition to single-hand riding. And that's when you'd move into something more similar to this bit. So right here, we've got a shanked snaffle. A shank on a bit, the longer the shank, almost more brake power it has. It's going to be a bit more severe than your ring snaffles. But again, if your horse is more finished by the age of 5 or so, it should be able to handle that. It just means you have to have less pressure and not two-handed. The mouthpiece on this, again, is relatively similar. This is what they call a smart snaffle. And this piece actually rotates. That's not necessary. It's just a cool little extra on this particular bit. And this is what I really like to move my horses up to when they're ready to go one-handed, because it's not too unfamiliar in terms of territory. And then, once your horse is going really well in that, if you feel that your horse is ready for the next step, or just you're ready for a bit where you don't need as much contact and your hands are soft enough, that is a big one with any bit. You make sure that your hands are soft. A correction bit can do wonders on a horse. Though this bit may seem severe to some riders, as long as your hands are working correctly and your horse is tuned up correctly, this is not being used as a punishment bit, you can really get the performance out of a horse with this. So the port here is our biggest difference with the snaffle. Unlike a curb, which is a fixed mouthpiece, the correction is going to have a bit more movement, which gives your horse a chance to soften up a little more. This is a relatively mild curb. I do prefer that on that port there. Your shanks, I don't like to go any longer than this. And there are regulations for your competitions. Make sure you always check those in terms of port height and shank length. But this is a bit that if you are steady with your hands and your horse is moving out well, you can always test them in something like this. You can get them with a smaller port, but it really is for your finished horses. So that's kind of a brief overview of just 4 bits. There's a ton of bits out there. Make sure that you are really looking into bits and consulting with trainers in your area if you're looking for something for your young horse. So usually you're pretty good with an O-ring to start. If you have a horse that you've purchased who's more finished, the first thing I always recommend doing is checking with the seller to see what bit they were riding their horse in. And if you aren't sure on the bits, never be afraid to experiment and try different bits on different horses. Every horse is going to be a little bit different. Thanks. Have a good day.